Hi guys, welcome to the masculine training for the Fierce and Feminine group or sistership. I'm really excited that you're here. I'm really excited to be delivering this to you today. I'm just going to get my little notes up. And yeah, so there's quite a lot to go into the masculine really, but before we go into that, I just want us to take a deep breath in. Bring ourselves back into the awareness of our body. Oh, just shake off the day. Oh. And just keep taking a few deep breaths in, just centering us in this moment. Just allowing anything to land that needs to land with us for this training today. Whatever we need to take away, we take away. Whatever we will miss, we will pick up later. Whatever is meant for us will always find us. Just setting your intention for this training, to learn more, to expand more, to get to know you more, whatever that might be for you. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So yes, today we're going to be talking about the masculine. I touched on it briefly in a live I did the other day, and so I'm just going to elaborate a bit more on that. So we have two energetic dynamics within us. We've got the masculine and feminine, which I'm sure everyone that's in my sphere is very, very, very well aware. And I mean, the goal, the aim in life is to find a balance of the two, is to find a balance of the masculine and the feminine within. Now, as a society, as a whole, we live in the hyper aspects and the wounded aspects. So it's normally hyper masculine, where we're in hustle culture. There's a lot of narcissism in the world. There's a lot of sociopathy in the world, and psychopathy in the world. That's all very hyper masculine traits. It can be hyper feminine traits as well, but it's a little bit more nuanced. And or we're in the wounded states, which is like, yeah, so in the hyper masculine states, there's lots of stress and lots of anxiety. So it's really kind of manic. And then we're in the wounded states, which is quite depressive. It's very victimhood. It's very wailing and wallowing and sitting in the emotions and addictions, and there's no middle ground. So patriarchy's in the hyper masculine, yeah. And then you'd see like, don't want to say prostitution, but you know, that kind of sexual abuse and all that kind of stuff, and addictions and all that's really in the wounded feminine kind of, you know, when we're in the abuse kind of rate, in the what's the word I'm looking for, being a victim of abuse is kind of in those wounded feminine states. So it's very victim consciousness, very swampy, very murky, very abusive to ourselves and others. So as I said, the goal is to bring them to balance. Now, the masculine cannot come into balance until the feminine is sorted, right? The masculine is, all the masculine wants is respect and trust. And the thing that we lack as women with, well, human beings with vaginas that identify as women or female is respect and trust for the masculine. We either don't trust the masculine to provide for us, or we don't respect what he provides. We emasculate the masculine in some way. And again, when that's happening, that means the masculine's in the wounded, or the masculine's in the hyper, right? So the feminine will be in the wounded, or the feminine will be in the hyper. You can't have a hyper feminine and a balanced masculine and vice versa. It has to be, they're like in a pendulum, right? So if you've got one hyper, you'll have one in wounded. If you've got one hyper and the other side hyper, you have one in wounded. It's about bringing those two in balance as much as you can. And as I said, to bring in balance with the masculine is about trust and respect. And what sets the precedent of how we think and feel about the masculine is our daddy wounds. Yup, our daddy old wounds. Maybe you didn't have a father figure as a child, but it's the masculine wounds of what you grew up with as a child. And that's not only from the caregivers, the male caregivers in your life, that's also, as you're a woman, watching how your mother or the female caregiver in your life was reacted and behaved and spoke about men. So you would have took that on as a belief, as, okay, that's the way the world works, because she's the closest thing to you, in like she's the most predominant female and you're female, right? So when it comes to the masculine, we have to unload not only what the man in our childhood showed us, but also what the female showed us for the man, what men were meant to be. And then that also shows up in your life, like you're bringing partners that represents your own inner masculine and feminine dynamics. Does that make sense? So if you grew up with quite a bully masculine, which a lot of us did, like the head of the household was the man, the wife maybe stayed at home, or there was the man weren't there at all, or whatever, you'll replicate that in your life with men coming in and out of your life. And they'll stand and they'll be really bullyish. Like for me, I had a really bullyish male when I was growing up, like the guy that abused me, my mum's boyfriend. I had a dad that absconded. And then I had another stepdad that was a waste man, who was an alcoholic. So the men that I had coming in and out of my life, throughout my life, were either bullies, emotional, manipulative, psychologically abusive, narcissistic, and or they were men that I used to emasculate. Like my second stepdad that was a waster. My mum was domineering over him. And so that come through my life. So that was the mirror through my life, right? It wasn't until I started doing this work that things started to shift, and I don't really attract those kind of guys into my life right now. Like most of the interactions that I have with men, they're all quite, I mean, everyone's got their quirks. I mean, I'm fucking very quirky, do you know what I mean? But a lot of the men that I speak to online or wherever else, like a lot of men in my circle and that, they're all very quite balanced individuals. They're not to the extremes of bullyish or any of that, or abusive in any way. Well, I don't think they are. And I was also able to let go of a lot of toxic relationships from doing this work with my masculine, right? Because they were all very entangled, codependent relationships that I had in the past. And doing this work with my masculine, and doing the work with my daddy wounds and all that kind of stuff, it really helped in my relationship, not only with the inside of me, it helped with the relationships on the outside, and letting go of past entanglements as well. And not only that, the masculine is the same purpose as money. So not only when working with the masculine energy do you clear up all your daddy issues, not all your daddy, I mean, it's an ever evolving thing, or a new level, new devil kind of thing, but you also helps with your money, because the masculine purpose the masculine is purpose, it is protection, it is safety, it is structure, it is systems, and all these kind of things. And the point of the masculine is to build these systems and these structures and lay these foundations so the feminine, our creative, intuitive, sensual side can create. Because without it, she's all over the place. She's like a splodge. And yeah, so the masculine within us is the action man, it's the magic man, it's the one that gets us the money, it's the provider, it's the one that goes out there and gets the thing. So she desires, so you've got the feminine down the left side, and she does all her desires coming in from the right. Ooh. And then the masculine, she's like, okay, she's like, okay, this is what I want. And then the masculine energy is like, right, okay, action, here we go, this is what we're going to do, this is where we're going to go. But what happens often is, because we don't have that trust or the respect there, The feminine will either bail, oh, I don't trust him to get it, won't even ask him to do it, so i.e. won't take the action, or he'll come back with something and she'll say it's not good enough. Has that ever happened to you? Like, you've got money that's come in, or, you know, you've been selling a program and as many people haven't come into your program that you wanted, and you've been like, oh God, even though you've got money in, it's been, oh, it's not enough. It's not good enough. So we kind of diminish the masculine. We don't show him respect, and we don't show him, trust him to provide for us, when inherently it's trusting ourselves, because it's not an aspect outside of ourselves, it's an aspect within, right? So we bring this into balance, the masculine aspects into balance, because we need the structure, we need the systems, we need the action, we need the provision, we need to trust and feel safe within ourselves to, you know, commandeer safety within, cultivate safety within ourselves to receive what it is that he's given us. Because we push it away as well, because of all the reasons I've named. Because there's lack of trust there. Maybe it was from abuse, or maybe your father went around, he worked all the time. Or maybe your father just gave you ridiculous standards because he was the perfect guy and now no one can match up to it. You're never going to find someone like your dad. So money's never enough. The men in your life are never enough because you've got ridiculously high tax stats. So you'll be in that hyper feminine state. Does that make sense? I hope so. When we balance these things out, we bring in structure and systems and strategies within our businesses, contracts. So the masculine's all about the who, what, where, and when, right? So the feminine is all about the desire. I just want this. That's all she does. I want this. And then she just surrenders in bliss. And the masculine goes and gets it. So he's all about the who, what, where, and when, right? And this is the thing in the business where us women fail, because we go straight into that wounded kind of feminine, where we don't allow the masculine structure and all that kind of stuff to come in. Because maybe it's because we've been in such a masculinized world for so long that when we come into our own business, it's like, oh, or maybe you just haven't got no business acumen, which is fine. When the business is a masculine structure, if you think about the history of business, it is patriarchal, right? But it's a structure for the feminine to flow through, like a river or a room. You know, you have the feminine is the blueprint of a room, right? So when you do it, you've got drawings, architectural drawings, you've got blueprints of a room. That's the feminine. This is what I want. The masculine's the walls, the feminine's the window, and the masculine's the panes. So without those panes in the window, it would just be a hole in the wall, and there'll be energy coming backwards and forwards constantly. There would be no control. So the masculine, with the window pane, feminine would be like, oh, I want the window open, oh, I want it closed. Does that make sense? So in that room, the space, the ambience, the sense of it, the awe of it, you know, that's the feminine, but the structure around it is the masculine. So you'll find when you're in your life, you'll know when you're needing more masculine is when you've got piss weak boundaries. People will walking all over you. You're saying yes to all the things. You've got people, freebie takers. You don't stick to your prices. Your prices are all up and down. You're fucking exhausted. You seem to be on the go all the time, but not getting nowhere. That's because you haven't got the masculine structure in place. And as you get bigger in business, you're going to need more of these structures. You're going to need more of these systems. You're going to need to have people come into your business like assistants and, you know, VAs and all this kind of stuff. So you have to delegate to allow yourself to feel free, to allow yourself free to be freer, and allow your magic and your craft to expand, and to allow your creativity to flow more. Does that make sense? So there's a few things you can do. Let me just have a look at this. I'm just riffing here. There's a few things that you can do. Like, there's a load of questions here, some shadow work questions for you. for you to kick up some shadow work. And then at the end, I've got some mirror work. So you look in front of the mirror and you do some affirmations and set intentions to talk to the masculine, hand on heart. Center it, and then the hand in the center of the mirror, and say every morning, I love you. And then you say your name. I love you, Tina. And then you say your name. So you'll be touching your own heart and touching the heart in the mirror. So masculine and feminine, there's two aspects of you. And you go, I love you, Tina. And then you connect with your masculine energy and ask him what he needs. And then you connect with your feminine energy. And you can ask her what she needs from her masculine. Such powerful work. I mean, you can do it now and just ask yourself, what does my masculine need right now? Mm-hmm. And then after you've done all the shadow work and all that kind of stuff, and you've uncovered all this stuff and you're doing these affirmations, I'd really love you to write a letter to your masculine, because you'll find out by answering these questions that you've had this kind of relationship. Whatever's going on in the outside world, if you haven't been doing this work before, is normally a mirror of what's going on the inside. Not when you're a bit further down the line of, you know, you've been doing this work for a while. At some point, reality gets to be a bit of reality, right? But when you first started out doing this work, definitely the outside reflections of the masculine, or the deviation, the polarity of the masculine is definitely the polarity of the masculine within you. Does that make sense? And then when you start doing this work, you can write a letter to him. Write a letter to your masculine. What do you need to say to him? Maybe you need to apologize him for punishing him for all the shit that you've gone through with men in your life, and you've been punishing your own inner masculine, not punishing your fucking self. Maybe you need to open up and say, look, I'm open to trusting you. When I first done this, I done a visualization. I was just lying in bed and I just saw myself. I was like, right, I need to connect with my masculine and feminine. So I was like in this big, huge, on a mountain, and there was like a cave there. I'll just try to remember it. That's why my eyes are closed. And I was standing in the corner here, and I saw a man like in fantasy clothes, I suppose, like a big warrior type man. And then I saw this little urchin girl in the corner, cowering like that, these big empathic eyes. And I was just like, oh my God, what am I visualizing here? And then he turned around and put his arm out to her. And I still get teary now thinking about it. And he turned around and put his arm out to her. And he was like, it's okay, you were safe. So she reached out and took his arm, his hand, and he pulled her to his chest and he hugged her. It's like, you are safe. You are safe. And she just cried and cried and cried and cried. She'd been so scared of him for so long that she just hid away from him. She wouldn't go near him. Wouldn't fully embrace him, allow him to care for her. She always felt like she had to do it herself. I hope that makes sense. It's different for different people. When I first started connecting with my masculine, I used to get one word things like, you are safe. I will look after you. I will protect you. Just simple things like that. And then there was another time I was connecting with him, and what do you want to do for me today? How am I going to connect with my masculine today? And it was like, well, just let me love you. And then I went to the shop and I was like, I really want some flowers. And I doubted it. I was like, oh no, I don't want to. And it was like, I got that thing in my head again, just let me love you. So if you're like, so you can take yourself out on a date, give yourself some flowers. That's pleasure as well. But that's the doing part. You're using the doing part. You're going to get yourself some flowers. That's the masculine aspect of the action piece of your energetic makeup. So every time you think to do something for yourself, it's not necessarily feminine. The feminine is the receivership of that, but the provision of that is masculine. So every time you go to think of doing yourself something and you deny yourself, that's your feminine aspect bailing out on the masculine. Saying, no, I don't want it. No, it's not good enough. Or no, I don't trust you. Which ultimately you're telling yourself that you don't deserve it. Does that make sense? So we're going to do this in two parts. You've got the work today, and there's a brief outline on there. There's a lot of shadow work stuff in there. There's mirror work. And as I said, there's writing letters. Come in, show us the letters that you're writing to your masculine aspect. Show us the letters, what you're writing. Tell us what comes up for you in the group. And I will be in next week with number 2, which will be more business related, about structure, systems and strategies, and just doing some more shadow work around that and what's coming up around that kind of stuff, because that's really important moving forward. Really, really important. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little training. If you've got any questions, please ask them in the group. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon, my darlings. Bye.